Welcome back, folks. Now, where do you find the Bigfoot in Washington State? Why, the Olympic Peninsula, of course. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where we are off to tonight. After a short break and a lot of overheating, the Reverend is back in full swing with a new Quasi Rewind, a brand new camping tips for stupids, more Eldorado Bigfoot Watch updates, and much, much more on tonight's Squatchers Lounge podcast. And now, here's our host of the show, the man whose beard can actually predict the weather, the Reverend Jeff Kelly.
Well done, Mr. Announcer Man. That's right, Mr. Collier Wilmus, the genius behind those intros. Hello, everybody. I am back. We are back here at the Squatchers Lounge podcast. I am indeed your host, the Reverend Jeff Kelly. I am here. You are there. Makes the whole thing awesome. We got some fun stuff to talk about tonight. That's right. We're going to have a brand new Camping Tips for Stupid. It's actually because the AC was out and it was 100 degrees in here the last couple of weeks. There wasn't no way in hell I was going to try and get this old computer to fire up and do a podcast. But here we are. It's 69 degrees in the podcast studio, and we are ready to have some fun. So let's talk about some news that has come up in the time that we've been gone from each other. That's right. That stupid creature thing, that wolf thing, that wolf-like creature. Yeah, it turns out it's just a wolf. Common gray wolf, to be exact. It just goes to show the hair color and facial features can really be spread across the spectrum, if you like. The spectrum is a word we like to use these days. It's the same thing with black bears. I got to be honest with you. Since I've been going to the Sierras the last 4 or 5 years, I've seen a lot of black bear. All of them alive, except for one. He was dead. But I don't think I've ever seen a black bear yet. I've seen a couple of blondies. I've seen a red one. I've seen a whole bunch of brown black bears. Yeah, they're not brown bears. They're black bears. They're Ursus americanus, but they don't look black. So yeah, wolf-like creature turns out to be a wolf. Imagine that. And it was proven through DNA. However, if you listen to the people over at the Sasquatch Genome Project, they've got full genomes on Dogman, and she was sure that this wasn't one of them. Yeah. So moving right along. Here's an interesting one that tells us that early humans slept around with more than just Neanderthals. Dirty little bastards. You know what? No wonder we have STDs that go back, 50,000 years. These dirty bastards are just sleeping with everybody. It's been known for some time that modern human ancestors inbred with other early hominid groups like Neanderthals, but it turns out they're more promiscuous than thought. New DNA research has unexpectedly revealed that modern humans, Homo sapiens, mingled and mated with archaic human species, the Denisovians, not once, but twice. That's right, in 2 different regions of the ancient world. We know about the mysterious Denisovians come from a single set of human fossils found in a cave of the Altai Mountains of Siberia. In 2008, scientists first discovered a bone of a pinky figure in a cave and said, "This don't look right." And turns out it wasn't right. It was something else. We know that happens. And the reason that I bring this up is because the more important article is the one that follows right behind this one. Improved ape genome assemblies will give human evolution insights. That's right. What we know as orangutans today haven't always been orangutans. They were proto-orangutans. They were whatever they were before they were orangutans. Sort of like the chicken and the egg theory. We go back and forth with this in our group a lot. Of course, it had to have been the egg that came before the chicken because the proto-chicken laid it. It's the only way chickens could exist. New higher quality assemblies of great ape genomes have now been generated without the guidance of the human reference genome. That's right. So they've had enough samples of their own to not use human primers to do it. They now have orangutan primers to use for it, which is awesome. The effort to reduce humanizing discovery bias in great ape genomes provide a clearer view of genetic differences that arose as humans diverged from other primates. So our little monkey thing that's coming along here that we all date back to, it catches a cold and a virus, changes something about it in a protein, and all of a sudden 10,000 mommies give birth to these weird ape things, and they're all in the same region, so they all start to interbreed with each other, and they turn into orangutans, and so the story goes on from there. At least that's one theory that we're investigating as we go along. Real good article here from the newsroom.uw.edu. I'm not going to get into all the technicalities of it, but you can check it out. You can always private message me. I'll be glad to send you the link. Here is the other interesting piece that goes along with that is mystery ghost species of chimpanzee discovered in the bonobo DNA. That's right. So they are advancing in the streams of DNA in the bonobo so far that they are able to determine, much like the humans bred with Denisovians and Neanderthals, that of course chimpanzee breeding and interspecies breeding and changes and maybe a virus, who knows, turned the chimpanzee into the bonobo. So now we have 5 species of known chimpanzee. We have the chimpanzee, we have the bonobo, we have the billy ape, we have Homo sapien, and we have Sasquatch. Haha, see? It's the 5th chimpanzee. Or could be, which would still allow it to be a paranthropus. So, the theory still works, but new species of ghost species of chimpanzee, which roamed the forests of the Central African hundreds of thousands of years ago, has been detected through genetic analysis. While there's no remains or living members of the previously unknown ape, its existence has been confirmed by scientists who found its genes being carried on by living bonobos. There you go. So that's the type of thing it's going to take, is breaking down those genome structures, not like the Sasquatch Genome Project, but real science, and we'll know more about what they were before they are what they are now. And that's more interesting than, we know a lot about what they are now, but how they got to be is quite a lot more interesting to see. Maybe if we can predict where it is that we're all going. Why are we here? The ultimate question. 42. All right. Sasquatch revealed exhibit set to open Friday at the Moses Lake Museum and Art Center in Columbia. Yeah, apparently. I'm not exactly sure Columbia where. You'd think they would put a state here, but it's hard to tell. Moses Lake, a traveling exhibit on Sasquatch, is set to open Friday at the Moses Lake Museum and Art Center. An opening reception for Sasquatch Revealed starts at 5 p.m. at the museum located at 401 South Balsam Street. Still no city or state, so I can't help you. There you go. If you can figure out where this is, there you go. You might be able to attend this one. Not really too sure. Dean Cooper, our quasi scientist, pointed these out to me just before showtime here. The alumni berkeley.edu has put out a couple of articles on Krantz, the legend of Grover Krantz, of course. He was the man behind the Gigantopithecus theory for all those years, because if that thing existed, well, why can't Bigfoot be just a descendant of that? Well, if that thing exists, it doesn't really have anything to do with why Bigfoot exists, but we've learned a lot since Grover Krantz's days. It's a 2-part article. The second part of it is got a picture of him and his doggy, and this is literally the display that they made out of his bones, and the dog's bones. They saved the dog, and they turned him into a viable skeleton as well as Krantz, and they posed him as he was closely in the picture. Not quite exactly, but closely as they could, I guess. And this was the second follow-up of the Krantz article. And if you're a fan of early Bigfoot study, It's a good talk. There's a bunch of quotes in here from Lauren Coleman, who has been posting them out there on Facebook as well. All right, and don't forget to get your Squatchers Lounge podcast fan stuff. That's right, man. There are shirts, pictures, art prints, clocks, mugs, stickers, you name it. It's out there. You can get it pretty cheap too. Redbubble.com/people/Bigfoot Watch will put you in there. I'll put a link in the description after the show. And that, my friends, is the news. Dun, 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 dun. Yes, sir. Hey, Eldorado Bigfoot Watch news. I am heading out to the Pi Valley tomorrow to check out some historic sightings. I got some Miwok Indian tales that come from directly around that area, and there's a campground there that I'd like to check out as well while I'm down there to see if I can do an investigation weekend in July. So we're heading down to the Pi Valley tomorrow. It is literally, there's gold in the ground. There's live springs on the hills. It's 4,100 feet. It's probably a day and a half's walk from Stumpy, but it hasn't been burned out, and it was never touched by the fire. So all the natural wildlife will still be in place. The chances of Sasquatch holding in that area will depend on whether there's any food in that area, and I won't know until I actually get there to kind of judge at what altitude the food will be when we go on expedition in July. But it's also literally just a day and a half in the opposite direction and the same snow line from where Ron Moorhead's camp is in the Stanislaus National Forest. Now, I don't know exactly where his camp is up there because he won't disclose it to anybody, so anybody could actually go and verify any of the stuff that he said. But I do know roughly where it is. I know on what plateau it is. And like I said, it's the same distance from there as it would be from the Plumas National Forest as well. So this is kind of a centralized place between two higher locations that also leads directly to the Tahoe, to the Tahoe Gap. And the Tahoe Gap is a natural corridor for everything to move through because it's all national forest or national park from clear down in Southern California all the way through to Northern California in the Six Rivers National Forest. So this is literally like a possible Bigfoot superhighway that they could run, that they could move, just a few days, 5 or 6 days, they could be in a whole new location. We don't know enough about the Sasquatch about, do they stay in one place? Do they claim territory? Is it a tribal thing? Tribal thing would be implying society and civilization, but I digress. We're going to go down and check out the Pi Valley tomorrow, do a little bit of fishing, eat some lunch, talk to some people, and check it out. So we'll let you know the dates of that because there are a bunch of campsites open of when we're looking to do it. All right. Now it is time for a quasi theory. That's right. After the news and the updates, is time for Dean Cooper's quasi theory of the week. There's something fishy in Denmark. And now, quasi theories from a quasi scientist with your host, Dean Cooper.
There's something fishy about the summer solstice. Yesterday, June 20th, was the first day of summer. Officially, it was at 11:24 p.m. Central Standard Time, where I live. If you live much east of here, it was this morning on June 21st. Traditionally, in the Christian world, it marks the birthday of John the Baptist, although it is usually celebrated a few days later, depending on when the solstice actually occurs. It's 6 months later than the birth of his cousin Jesus, whose birthday is celebrated a few days after the winter solstice. When Jesus went to John to be baptized, John said, "He must increase, but I must decrease." John 3:30, which is to say that after Jesus is born, days get longer. After John is born, days get shorter. Jesus, after all, has all the attributes of many pagan sun gods. Christianity is notorious for having adapted much of pagan mythology, holidays, customs, well, really, nearly all of paganism into Christianity. 12 Greek gods, 12 apostles, all the same holidays. Churches built on top of the foundations of pagan temples, the which were torn down by Christian monks. The list is near endless. So from whence was John the Baptist derived? The answer is in the etymology of his name. John comes from the Latin Johannes, which comes from the Greek Ioannis, which in Hebrew is Yohanan, all of which comes from Oannes. Oannes was the Mesopotamian god of water and wisdom, whose worship included baptism. Oannes was depicted as half man and half fish and was also known as Dagon. The odd hat called a mitre, worn by Christian cardinals, is a stylized fish head and was worn by the priests of Dagon. So Jesus, the sun god, is baptized by Oannes, the water god. The great mythologist Joseph Campbell wrote, "Several scholars have suggested, therefore, that there was never either John or Jesus, but only a water god and a sun god." So let's honor both today, both sun and water. Get out your sprinklers, your super soakers, your slip and slides. Fill up some water balloons and baptize your neighbors. You may read the text of this on my blog at bydean.com. That's BHAIDIN.com.
Bydean.com. That's right. There's your quasi theory of the rerun week at the summer solstice. That's right. Tomorrow is technically, I think, the summer solstice here. It'll be interesting to see the goofiness that comes out of that. All right, people. And with that, now, next up, we've got a brand new camping tips for stupids. Can you dig it? I can dig it. I just have to make sure that the audio device is set properly because it wasn't. See how that works. All right, here we go. A little bit of gone camping and camping tips for stupids.
Camping tips for stupids. Tip number 66. As the spring wave of campers hits the campsites in the national parks like a tsunami made out of kids, dogs, and barbecue meats, you might want to consider heading out into the backcountry to get away from the crowds. Backpacking is an ancient tradition spanning way back to caveman days. Because, no cars or houses and shit. Packing light is the name of the game. Only the essentials and the lighter version of the things. But some people just don't get that. And always remember to get the right pack for the right hike. And if you got the money, you can always just helicopter your lazy rich ass in. This has been Camping Tips for Stupids. Remember to spay and neuter your idiot population.
Well, there you have it, people. Remember, if you get lost in the woods, stay where you are. If they haven't found you in 3 days, they'll find that 10-acre fire. Kidding, of course. Do not set the national parks on fire. That's horrible. And stop with the graffiti. Holy crap. Are you kidding me? Graffitiing up the hiking trails in Southern California? What are you? Ghetto hikers? Look, snowflakes, leave your damn snowflake paint at home. We don't need pretty flowers on monuments. We don't need you painting your name on the rocks. We don't need you leaving your mark behind and nothing. It's bad enough you leave some crap or some pee behind. But we don't, please, do not tag the trails and the rocks and the monuments and the trees and everything else like you're a dumbass. Please, just stop it. Stop it. You see this shit? Stop it. Oh my God. Sorry, I went off on a tangent there, but it's not just one. I mean, it's like there's been like 6 in the last week that I've seen in the Southern California hikers group that's just ridiculous. Why would you hike all the way up somewhere to deface it? Holy crap. Anyhow, it's time to do some shout outs. Let's see who's out here hanging with us live. Now, I might have chased everybody away with that rant, but it does happen. Hey, there's a Mr. Lance Windsor. So glad you are back, sir. There's Mr. Kit. Oh, I got it. Yeah, it's all over the microphone again. How you doing, sir? Shane Barber, the cryptid monster. Greetings and salutations, sir. Natalie Smith. Hey, I hope you're feeling well. You look, hey, I think somebody said something about Wheezy hanging out tonight, too. Timothy McCune, man, I'm so sorry about missing out the last couple of weeks, but 100-degree heat in the house just wasn't going to happen. Just wasn't going to happen. Mr. Dean, Cooper. That's right. Our quasi theorist is watching the show. Imagine that. All right, let's see here. Moving right along, there is Can Squanch is checking into the house. That's right. AC is above all. Without it, it sucks. Jonathan Doughty, hi everyone, and back at you there, sir. I hope you and yours are feeling well. Gone camping. That's right. The genius of Jevin Moore. He was right there with us. Mr. Don Reif, the pirate man, the Viking man. It's all around the house. I'll back right at you, sir. So glad you are here. Trey Thomas, big hello back at you from California to Texas. Yeah, there's a lot of people in the house tonight. So glad everybody's hanging with us. Cheryl Willen, glad you're with us. Hello, Mr. Yoder, Hobo Man 5, checking in. Oreo Green Rocks, there she is. I was wondering where you've been. And you've been a little quiet in our group chat. Mr. Michael Bird. Howdy. Glad you're back. Spike, Jeff. Hi, I'm fine. I'm glad you are here. How are you? The Reverend Matthew Gaines has joined us. Hello, Reverend. Spies like us. Hey, Maria Allegria. I hope that's right. Allegria. I'm one of the other. Glad to meet you. So glad you're here. I think that's a new name that I haven't seen before. Let's see here. I know we have more because there's always more. Collier Wilmus, there he is. Man, the intro was great tonight, brother. Thank you so much, Mr. Intro Man, for doing a bang-up job on that. If I haven't said your name and you haven't said hi, I don't know you're here, so it's going to be very difficult for me to say hi to you. I'm getting down towards the bottom here, so there we go. There's some new ones. Keith Harden, how do you do, sir? Glad you are here with us as well. A brave bird saved. That's right. Jesus was born in September. That's right. He was born during the harvest, but they couldn't afford to take a break then, so they waited till winter time. Dun, 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 dun. Chris Cullinan, he's checking in. That's right. The Kentucky man himself. Okay, we're getting there. We're almost there. Yeah, snowflakes, man. I'm sorry. I do lose it sometimes. There was a pink. There we go. Lewis, how you doing there, pal? Glad you are back with us. Gonna go camp the Pi Valley in early July, but they're weird days. Let's see here. Hot Diggity Dog, how you doing there, sir? Dogman Central, back at you, sir. Hey, you can stop looking for the Dogman. I heard that Melva Ketchum's already solved that one. You might want to check into that. I don't know. Kevin K420, so glad you are with us as well. I think that is the end of them. If I didn't say hi to you, I don't know you are here. Okay, now we are going to talk about it. That's right. We're going to kick it off. We're going to talk about the Olympic Peninsula. And, in a good way, sort of, I guess. Usually I talk badly about that, but we're not going to tonight. We're going to talk about some sounds that I have found. Boy, we have to back out of this map just a bit. There we go. All right, the Olympic Peninsula. That's right. That's what we are talking about tonight. Mount Olympus, West Peak, the Olympic National Park. This all has been a hot zone for Sasquatch activity for a long time. There's a big project there. The Olympic project is out there, and there's a bunch of guys trying to do a bunch of good work out there. And it literally is a no man's zone from Quinault all the way to Elwha, and it gets some seriously high peaks and valleys in all of this. Now, all three of these were brought from a BFRO investigator. The very first one is really obvious, but I'm going to go ahead and play the whole clip as it was recorded, and then I was able to enhance the whoop at the end of it, and it's so generically bright at a different pitch that eventually I'm going to have to put a show of the best of the Bigfoot howls, and I'll have to sift through all the stuff that I've done so far, and maybe we'll do that for a halfway show. But here's the original. Turn your volume up a little bit, don't blast it. Have your earphones on. Whoop. Whoop. Now the story goes, they had gone out into the woods. They had done a couple of howls, and then just kind of sat down for an hour. And then they did those two whoops and got that really strange reply. Now I've enhanced that reply, and I don't know what to consider this. Let's just take a listen to it. I mean, is it Space Ghost? I mean, I'm not sure. It's like whoop. It's the strangest sound. I'd be freaked out. I don't know. I don't want to hear that in the woods. So I fished a little deeper on their channel, and they've got some other things that are really, really quite interesting. Like the next one is it's 2 minutes of the original clip. The full clip's like 5 minutes long. And I took certain sections of it and enhanced it afterwards. So as usual, let's take a listen to the original. It's about 2 minutes long, so bear with us here. Now, I know it was really, really hard to hear, but with my headphones on, of course, I could hear it. It's almost like a train whistle in the background, but it's definitely not because there are different intervals behind it. But it's a wailing howl. It's a wah, wah. And it's just faintly there. The birds are closer, and it was really tough to pull out of there. And then there's some like gibberish talk towards the end of it. It sets the coyotes off about the third howl, and that's what all the yipping and the scratchiness was. Now here's a 33-second clip of what the best I could clean up that wailing howl. It's definitely a little more evident in that cut. I took another section and enhanced it, and I believe it leads up to that gibberish talk. Yeah, I'm not sure what that sound is, but I was able to take and isolate it and bring it up. So let's listen to it enhanced. It's almost like babbling, blah 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 blah. As the story goes, the recorder was in a random meadow, and this was evidence that they pulled off of it after they picked up the device later on. I was able to isolate just that little bit of babbling and tried to normalize it as well. It's very short. I don't want to hear that in the woods, especially at night. This was actually taken in the middle of the day, which was kind of odd that something would be howling and wailing, like a train whistle, in broad daylight while the songbirds are out there. And the same group now, they were setting up camp sometime later, and it just started going off. I've had this happen where literally, you're just getting out of the car, you've grabbed your tent or whatever, and you're starting to unpack it. You haven't even put a recorder out yet, and it starts going off out there. Here's a clip of the original. There's a section of it here. See if we can hear what's going on. That, of course, I was able to enhance and isolate. I mean, it's like as if on cue, there was a whoop from a different animal at the end of it. Now, I was able to bring that up quite a bit. You should be able to hear it a little more clear in this cut. So then I took and isolated the whales and was able to bring them up even a little bit further. You just have to get away from some of the earlier noise and isolate that particular part of the track so that you can bring it up in volume a little bit. So let's take a listen to that. I'm just not sure what that space ghost sound, that shrill thing. It's like mountain monsters. Like every time you hear that, you know the Yahoo's close. Yeah, I'm not really too sure about that. Now, I isolated a little bit further down the line here, just before the whoop. I was able to bring those up really nice and loud for us. And you could tell that it was recorded on a stereo recorder because the sounds are definitely coming stronger from the left side than they are from the right side. They've left it in the natural state that it was. And you could actually see it in the recording itself as well, that there were definitely things in the left channel that were much louder than they were in the right. I was able to really enhance that last whoop. And I've heard this firsthand sitting at a few camps now. Whoop! It is that chimpanzee alert. It is that, let's get the hell out of here type of thing. If you hear that, it might all be over shortly after. And that, my friends, that's what I've got for you for audio clips out of the Olympic Peninsula this week. Absolutely. As we dig deeper and deeper into this, there are some that are believable, that are some that are just unknown, and that are some that are just so far out there that we just can't quite grasp onto them. But we're building a volume, a canon, if you like, of things that are the same in many different places in the country. And I think I'm going to start putting a show together based on a lot of those results and where they came from, and see if we can't have a name that Squatch, and maybe you can pick which state it came from. So that'll be fun to do. I want to thank you guys all for being out there tonight. I want to make sure Mr. Fang checked in really late. How you doing there, Mr. Fang? So glad you were finally able to join us here in the lounge. We are back on the air next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific. We're going to end up tonight with another Bigfoot campfire, real Bigfoot encounter reboot from a few years ago. I want to thank everybody for being here. May the healing light of whatever you believe in, and maybe some of the things you don't, surround you and get you well. With that, may the Squatch be with you.
Welcome to another edition of Real Bigfoot Encounters with Reverend Jeff. This story comes to us from deep within the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. On a crisp fall evening, an encounter with a hairy giant changed one man's life forever. Let's hear his story. I've been an outdoor person my entire life. Since I was a kid growing up in the hills, I've spent an entire summer in the woods, sometimes weeks at a time, hunting, fishing, and just camping out. I decided to hike up the mountain a bit further than usual to get closer to a waterfall, as I heard the fishing was much better up there. I landed at the spot about 10 in the morning, set up a tent, and got my fishing gear out to start fishing. Throughout the day, the fishing was hot and cold, but as the night approached, it seemed to really slow down. So I grabbed up my fish and I headed back to make a fire. I had just gotten the fish set up to cook when I heard something down by the creek. It was an odd sound, like something splashing in the water. I grabbed up my big flashlight and I headed down to the water's edge. And as I approached the creek, I noticed a dark figure kind of hunched over, It was near the water's edge of the pool, the waterfall. At first, I thought it was a bear grabbing a quick meal, until I noticed it had a large branch in its hand. Just about then, the creature stood up the full height, about 7 foot tall, and it raised up the large branch above his head, and then came heaving down towards the water, letting the branch splash into the water. Just a moment later, I noticed the creature reach down into the water and toss a fish up onto the bank. I guess it was fishing. I was amazed standing there in the presence of this giant creature. It was peaceful looking, almost like a person, but it was covered in thick hair from head to toe. It was longer on the head and chest, but thinning near the V-shaped waist. It was powerfully built with really long arms and very prominent brow. Its eyes were large and spread apart on the face, and the nose seemed to be somewhere between man and ape. Everyone has heard stories of Sasquatch, but they never believe it. But standing right in front of my eyes was this giant creature. I stood and watched as it turned around and gathered up the fish laying on the ground, stacking them in one hand and making its way back into the woods, kind of walking on 3 limbs. It used its free hand to walk off in the woods. It looked like it was injured. A leg, maybe, was dragging it to the right, just slightly behind it. I headed back to camp, kind of really freaked out about the sighting, but it was far too late to hike out now. There was no choice but to stay put and head out at first light. I sat vigilant by the fire, and I was hearing strange calls coming from the darkness of the creek. It almost seemed pitiful, like a mother animal calling out a lost pup. This went on about every 90 minutes throughout the night, but much less frequent as the dawn approached, and the silence as the sun rose on the mountain. I packed up my gear as the light became enough to see. Within an hour of sunrise, I was ready to get back to the road. I hiked downstream, and I found a newly fallen tree crossing the creek to the other side. Strange, as I hadn't heard a tree fall during the night. I set down my gear and crossed the tree to check out the area on the other side, and when I reached it, I noticed large, unshoed footprints all around the base of the tree, some bigger than others, almost as if a family was walking around with no shoes on, but the prints were giant. Just then I heard a loud knock come from behind me. I quickly turned and saw something large move into the shadows of the trees. I decided my curiosity wasn't going to make a cat out of me, and I recrossed the creek to my gear. I quickly gathered up my gear and I made my way down the creek. The whole time I felt as though I was being watched and followed. I finally reached a clearing to the trail where I had parked my Jeep. While crossing the field, 3 more knocks rang out from the tree line I had just exited, making me pick up the pace thinking they were still coming for me. I tossed my gear into the Jeep, fired it up, and made haste with my exit from the area. To this day, I still fish that area, but never do I venture that far upstream. I figure if those creatures want that area, it's fine with me. Anonymous. You have to ask, what does an 800-pound Sasquatch have for dinner? Well, anything it wants. For this man, this trip was something he'll never forget. For me, it was yet another real Bigfoot encounter. Thanks for watching. I'm Reverend Jeff, and may the Squatch be with you.
That's right. Hey, let me give a special shout out to Chris, because I almost forgot that Christopher's out there watching, and his buddy Caleb Grinder. Glad you guys are with us as well. I saw one really late arrival to the lounge. There was James the Grower. How you doing there, buddy? And Hiking Deep. So glad you all could have joined us tonight. See you next week. Same time, same Squatchy channel. May the Squatch be with you.